Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. On Fridays, we talk about the product owner role in Scrum. We talk about patterns and anti-patterns that relate to ours and the team's collaboration with the product owner. And we've also put together a course to help you navigate that relationship. There's 18 modules, nearly 8 hours of tools, techniques, videos, handouts, presentations you can use to help you and your team work better with your product owner. The course is available at bit.ly/coachyourPO. All lowercase, all one word. That's bit.ly/coachyourPO. And now, on to the show, the Product Owner Show. Hello everybody, welcome to our TGIF and Product Owner episode this week with Daniel Lenhart. Hi Daniel, welcome back.
Hi Vasco, nice to be here.
So Daniel, product owners, that's what we're going to talk about. And to start us off, we'll start with potentially the worst anti-pattern of a product owner that you've had to work with. Share that with us, Daniel.
Sure. The worst anti-pattern was the technical product owner. So a product owner who was is very experienced in the technical backgrounds which the team is working on. So sometimes this can be a kind of an advantage when the product owner speaks the language of the team and also kind of understands most of the technical stuff this team is talking. But it can be a big anti-pattern, especially when the product owner starts to tell the team the how and not only the what, when he kind of gives the team already in the story descriptions how technical parts should look like, how to do some technical solutions and so on. When this is happening, I immediately saw that the team then is less productive. They kind of then leaning back because they say, well, why should I think about stuff? The product owner already defines it. And so it's also sometimes then frustrating for the team. And at the end, the product which they're developing is not better. Because then if the product owner takes a lot of time of defining the technical stuff in stories, I have the feeling that he doesn't have so much time about the important stuff in a story, which is the benefit for the user, the business value, and also how to write the stories that it benefits the user and the team gets the idea behind the story, and they then can use their expertise, which they have a lot, and to develop the technical details and the architecture and so on.
That's actually a great point. Maybe we explore that a little bit further. So
Sure.
There's this concept, and I see it, alive and kicking pretty much everywhere, that a product owner who was potentially previously a developer or an architect takes over the product owner role is supposed to know all the details, all the technical details. And I've seen this in real life, all the way down to the bits in a network packet that need to be set in a certain value. I've seen this happening. And what that reminds me is that in that product owner's mind, and potentially in their manager's mind as well, the developers don't know how to create a solution for a particular problem, right? I mean, otherwise, why would they go to that level of detail, right? To explain, what are the architectural changes, what kind of libraries to use, maybe even what API calls and what parameters to put into those API calls, or in the example that happened to me, on the bits to set in a network packet. How do you see it, Daniel? Like, what might be the reasons for these POs to take that level of detail into their work?
I think it's fear and a desire to control. When I saw this behavior, it was when I talked to the product owner, it was mostly their conception that they have to do it because they fear that the team is not capable of doing it for themselves and that they're missing some stuff, and maybe the product at the end is too buggy, or we have too many downtimes, or escalations with the client because some stuff is not working. And that they only can make sure that this is not happening when they're controlling. everything from the technical solution in their stories, that they're defining everything. And then the team just is basically a coding monkey who is programming everything the product owner wrote in the story.
Some people still believe programmers are coding monkeys and testers are test monkeys. That is true.
Yeah, but that's the misconception. And okay, it's understandable why sometimes this feeling is there. But then you don't give the team a possibility to solve these problems, which is kind of their role. They should solve these technical problems. They're working together. They are the experts. That's why, because they are developers, and the PO is the PO.
Even if the PO is a developer, the fact is that developers need to do so many decisions every day that expecting the PO to be able to make those decisions for them is a self-defeating proposition, really.
Yeah. And also, if the product owner is so content with kind of defining this stuff on a technical level, maybe then he shouldn't be the product owner and
Correct.
should go back to being a developer, which is also
take
fine.
It to the next level. Yeah, be a developer.
Yeah,
so one technique that I found is useful, at least for me, when working with product owners, and here I would like to highlight that for us as Scrum Masters, definitely one of the key aspects, one of the key relationships we should develop is the relationship with the product owner. One of the techniques that works for me to tackle those fears, as you were describing them, is to actually transform the fears into acceptance criteria, right? So like when they describe a certain level of technical detail in a story, then work through that story with them and try to assess the fears. So what are you afraid of? Like, if you don't write that, what's the worst thing that could happen? And turn that into a negative test or an acceptance criteria just to make sure that the fears are really taken into account. And also training the product owner to learn to listen to their fears, and instead of stating out the solution, to actually state out what's, the worst case scenario, the problem that they want to avoid, and let the team decide how to avoid it. What do you think about that, Daniel?
I think this is a very good idea. And if you're kind of doing it this way, of kind of more defining the problem statement and what the team should solve and not how, because it's it's written into the product owner book, basically. You should define what and not how, and the team defines how. And also, in my case, which I then coached the product owner, we talked about is we had then a workshop with the team where the team said, okay, they got their voice also. I moderated this kind of okay, we had a look at a story and they said, okay, these areas are too much detail, so too much technical stuff. Just strip them out. So more focus on these things, which we want to know about what the functionality should be for the user. So really write the stories differently, but kind of it was a communicative feedback process between the developers and the product owner, how they most profit from a story. And at the end, so the summary of this kind of change was that the product owner wrote less detailed stories, more broader with good acceptance criteria, like you stated, and then we iterated on this kind of approach, how to write stories, and had a look at it every retrospective for 2 or 3 retrospectives to improve the quality of the stories, so that the development team at the end can doing the stuff which the product owner wants them to do, and have a lasting then impact for the product and have a good product at the end.
Absolutely. A great story. All right, Daniel, now we turn our attention to the opposite, the potentially best product owner you've ever worked with. So share that story with us, Daniel.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. So one of the traits of the best product owner I ever worked with is the skills, the capabilities to really transport a vision and a future direction for the team. So with this product owner, it was really amazing how he could take everything which he kind of has in his mind for a vision of the product and where it is going, and communicate it to the team. And he really did this in an amazing way. And you really had when you were in this meeting, you really saw how the team is taking it into and incorporating that, and you really felt it. And when they worked on it, that they knew what the product owner said. So this is, I think, a really important skill to have it always makes it easier to know where you're going when you know it and when it's good communicated. And that was one very good skill I saw. And which is also then important playing into this, but in general, is being available as a product owner for questions, listens to the questions the team is saying, and having this good then back and forth between the product owner and the team about stuff which is going on, because at the end, the product owner is part of the team, and you're not just doing the product backlog, then having the sprint planning, creating the sprint backlog, and then done. The team works at it, and in the end, you have the sprint review. But in all the cases I saw where there was a good relationship between the developers and the product owner, when there was a back and forth, a constant communication about stuff when they had a question, but mostly driven from the developer side. So when they were focusing on stuff, the product owner doesn't pester them with questions and how are you, what's the status, but really the team says, hey, I need some insight on this story, what do you think about this, what was your intention, and having this feedback on a more broader side. And also then, for example, doing then earlier kind of reviews about some of the stories to see, okay, in which direction you want to go. And this is really, I think, then a lasting and productive relationship between a good product owner and the whole team.
Absolutely. Kind of reminds me the old XP practice of customer in the room, right? Where basically the product owner is available for us to develop the stories together with the product owner rather than just from specs. Because in the good old days, a user story, was a reminder that we needed to collaborate on the outcome of that story. And it was not just a spec. This idea of a user story being a specification is something that comes from the waterfall world, where, of course, specifications were very important because the people who wrote them were not the ones developing them, and they were probably never talking to each other. But in the case, in a Scrum team, the product owner is available and is able to develop the story and the outcomes of the story together with the team as the team writes the code for the story. And I think that's actually a very important aspect we sometimes miss. So definitely a great aspect or a great characteristic for a great product owner is to be available and to help the team iterate the stories even before they are complete.
Yeah, and I have one last thing which I just remembered. It's also very nice for a good product owner if he has clear boundaries. What I mean with this is that when the team, for example, seeks help in a kind of more in a way which would then impact their area of knowledge, the product owner says, okay, no, this is something you should solve. It's your expertise. I'm here if you have any business related questions, but if it's more about solution oriented, you're the expert, do it on yourself. So really a kind of when the product owner knows what the teams and his boundaries are and acts on them and not kind of waters them down, because then he enables the team to self-organize, to improve on their own. And you really have these kind of clear boundaries to product owner is taking care of the product side, development team is developing, and which is then helping with a lasting collaboration between both sides.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for sharing all of those insights and learnings, Daniel. It's been a pleasure to have you here on The Week. We're about to go, but before we do, where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
I'm available on LinkedIn, so if you're interested, I sometimes also publish there some articles and posts, and so you can follow me there, contact me there if you have any question. Or also you can contact me via email, daniel.lenhart@mnify.com. And I think we can share this also in some other way. But yeah, if there's some question, please don't hesitate to contact me. And yeah, Vasco, it was very nice experience. It was very cool talking to you. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you once again for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Sure, always.
One more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast is over. But there's a lot more we have to share. We have developed our own membership site where you find a community of active and engaged Scrum Masters. In this site, you get access to exclusive content and get to interact with us, your podcast hosts, as well as the best Scrum Masters in the world. Join us at scrummastertoolbox.com/podcast and keep this podcast free of advertising. See you next week for one more week full of Scrum Master tips and tricks. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.